I'm 34 now. I just turned 34 recently, and I'm going to give you some hard-hitting truths that I wish someone would have told me when I was younger. And I didn't really have a lot of role models when I was younger growing up. I didn't really have a lot of guidance that I needed, and there wasn't really anyone in my life that I really looked up to and respected, that was living life by example, to where they gave me advice and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, well, this sounds like sound advice. And I look at their life and I'm like, I don't want to live like you, like, why are you telling me this? And you can't even take your own advice, you know what I mean? But I made this channel because I wanted to be that older brother that I never had. I wanted to be that, maybe that friend that I never had. So let's get into it. First thing I want to go over is there is no perfect way to spend your 20s right now. Okay, everyone's life is different, but you have to choose consciously between living it up in your life, right, and working it up, right? So there's always gonna be trade-offs. I've heard guys that are quite successful that are in their 20s or 30s that are very successful, like above average, right? But there's sacrifices that must be made. So there's always going to be trade-offs, right? So I went in the Marine Corps for 4 years in infantry right out of high school. I went in when I was 19 and I got out when I had just turned 23. So didn't really, pretty much walked a straight line when I was in the military. Didn't really do a whole lot, except kind of go on a hookup spree for a while, but didn't really get into any kind of drugs, or didn't really drink or anything like that. Not really any kind of partying. And then when I got out, I went to college. I was living with a girl for 2 years and in a house, and we had a whole life together. And I was going to school, but of course it was a smaller school, and I wasn't really engaged with the community. I was starting college, and I was 23 years old, 24, so a little bit older. I lived off campus, and I was in a long-term relationship for 2 years. So that was, it's kind of tough when you're in that situation, right? To kind of go out and experience the world and whatnot. I was also just trying to figure my life out. I was a personal trainer. I was in school full time. It took me 7 years to finish college, and I did a bunch of different stuff for work. I always kind of worked out, but other than that, I was kind of just drifting through life. And I had switched my major to criminal justice a couple years in college, and so for another 2 years I was really trying to walk a straight line because I was trying to go into law enforcement. And it wasn't until my late 20s, like around I think it was like around 29 years old, that I kind of started going down, partying a lot, doing a bunch of shenanigans and other substances, if you will, just experimenting, right? And I got started kind of late with that, sort of like the partying. And I had a period of time for about 2 years. I was partying all the time, like every single weekend. I was getting messed up, like it was bad. But so I kind of did that from like 29 to 31. And then I got my shit together. So I'm like, all right, I hit my 30s. I'm like, all right, we got to get it together. I didn't really even get my shit together, so to speak, until I was like around 30 years old. That's when I started finishing college, getting my corporate job in sales, and then starting my own fitness business. So I got kind of started late, but there's no perfect way to go about it, right? There's always going to be trade-offs. Like if you really lock in when you're in your 20s, but you can kind of have a balance where you can, still have fun, like that's probably going to be the best approach. Because I've heard guys that are really, really successful, they sacrificed a lot of fun in their 20s, and then so in their 30s, and then after that they want to live it up, right? So you might have kind of a FOMO. Most people regret only like living it up, so to speak, if they end up underskilled in their 30s, okay? So that's really going to be the biggest point with that at the end of the day, no matter what anyone says. Because if you build enough value and skill set, even if it's just one thing, right, that you got really good at, building skills and working hard early gives you more options later in life, and you're going to be further ahead, okay? Now, you can periodize your work-life balance. Now, what do I mean by periodizing? What I mean by that is, I mean going monk mode or really locking in hard for like a couple years, a few years, right? We're not really dating. We're not really doing anything extra. We're just locking in, bro. That's the thing. And then you can take some time to rest or pursue other interests. I usually, I've been doing a lot of monk modes for about 5 years now. And you can break it up and periodize this kind of productivity within a year too. For example, you're monk mode for 3 months, and then you are, you know, gonna maybe enjoy yourself for another few months. So you can periodize your work-life balance. That's how it's done. Because you can't do everything at once. It's just not possible, right? And you got to understand too, I'm really going to harp on this point, you can't miss it, but the earlier you start building skills and gaining direction, the more progress you'll make over the long term. That's it. The earlier you start, the better. You've got to avoid spreading yourself too thin. If you're ambitious and you want to do a lot of things, you cannot do all of them at once. You just can't. I watched a really great documentary of Arnold Schwarzenegger, and this man did everything. He came to the US, lived the American dream. He was an actor. He was a professional bodybuilder, winning the Olympia. He was, did modeling. I don't even know what else he did, but he did everything he wanted. But he did one thing at a time. He focused on one thing at a time. And so what you have to do is you have to focus intensely on one priority at a time to yield better results. So I know myself in the past, I tried doing too many things. Making content, being an in-person personal trainer, trying to do online training, working a corporate job, trying to have a perfect physique, doing fitness modeling. Like you just can't do all these things at once, and trying to have a relationship and still making time to date women and stuff. Like you cannot do all of them at once. You just can't. And a lot of guys out here, I know myself, being ambitious, you want to do a lot of things, and that's great. I'm not saying to ignore them, but you got to understand that you got to pick one thing and just stick with that one thing for a while until you get really good at it to see it through, okay? What happens is when you start spreading yourself too thin, then you end up diminishing the quality of what you're doing for those things. And so you can never really get truly great at any one thing, okay? So you have to just decide on what's that one thing that you're gonna do, go all in with it, and take off. So I'll give you a quick story. So I decided to start YouTube back in January. And I've gone all in with YouTube. I pretty much drop a video every day. And then I have my corporate job in sales. The past year, I have spent more time on work and making money and leveling my life up with my resources and doing YouTube than I have with anything else. I just recently started kind of dating again this year, but I wasn't seeing any women for like a year and a half, bro. And I stopped doing the in-person personal training. I have one client that I work with, and I have 2 or 3 clients that I coach online, but it's pretty hands-off. It doesn't require an extensive amount of my time. So I had to let something go. I realized, okay, well, I can't, if I want to do YouTube, I'm gonna have to sacrifice, right? I spent less time in the gym for the past year. I still spend less time in the gym, maybe 45 minutes to an hour a day, a few days a week. I just used to work out for 2-3 hours a day, running and then cardio and then weights, and just optimizing my looks, which I want you guys to optimize your looks. What my point is it just depends on what season of life you're in. So maybe you're really focusing heavily on business, maybe you're focusing really heavily on your physique, right? You should still always prioritize your health. You should still always prioritize these other things, but you gotta understand there's no such thing as balance in life. And I made a video on this. If you haven't seen it, right, check it out. But how balance actually is achieved in one's life is when you focus on 1 or 2 areas at a time, and you're going all in on those areas. There's 1 or 2 areas, okay? And then there's another season of your life where you're like, okay, now I'm gonna go give some love to the relationships bucket. I'm gonna give some love to, more love to my physique, and whatever it is, whatever your priorities are, it's your job to figure out what your priorities are and when, okay? But you can't spread yourself too thin. Also gotta understand that anxiety comes from having too many options in your life. It comes from having unclear priorities, and sadness comes from a lack of options. So you have to get very specific about your ambitions that you have in your life and break them down into actionable steps. So I highly encourage you to get a pen and paper out, outline your ideal life. Then write out, what does your living hell life look like if you don't do these things? Okay, it's going to be painful, but it's a great exercise. And then you need to list out your goals. Like, what are your goals? Okay, and then once you have your GPS coordinates set on where you want to go, you then have to reverse engineer it, okay, and break it down into smaller actionable steps. And if you want help with this kind of thing, I do one-to-one video coaching sessions. Shoot me an email. It's in my bio, it's on the video description. We'll set up a call. But you've got to get very clear on where you want to go. Just like if you're trying to go somewhere that you've never been, right? If you don't have a GPS or a map, like, how are you going to get there? You got to have like a clear direction, okay? Your GPS coordinates have to be set. Now, don't use money as your sole measure of success. Focus on growth and having meaningful experiences, and not attaching your self-worth to how much money you have. Yes, I talk about hypergamy and how women want to make sure they're with their best option, and how resources for men is the most important, okay? But it's also the internal value as a man. It's about building yourself in many different areas, okay? And you should never just attach your self-worth to how ripped you are, how much muscle you have, how smart you are, how much money you have, what your title is. Like, you should never put your self-worth on these things, because we're wearing a mask, it's these masks of masculinity that I talk about, right? You wear this mask where you're defining yourself on how much money you have. You're defining yourself, putting your self-worth on your title, your physique, all these things. And while all these things are important, what's most important is who you're becoming in the process, the man that you're becoming in the process. That's what's most important. Legacy. What are you building? You're not on anyone's timeline but yourself, but you should move with urgency. I wish I would have moved with more urgency in my 20s. Move with intention, make moves with intention, be intentional about your life, everything, who you talk to, where your time and your energy goes, everything that you're doing. Move with intention. Have structure to your life, plan out your days, be organized, be disciplined. And stop caring so much about what other people think. Prioritize your own values and goals, right? Above society, above your parents, above anybody in your life. There's so many opinions. Everybody wants to have a fucking opinion about everything. It's your life, your blueprint. Run it how you want. You are the author of your life, of your story, because your life is a story, right? It's a book. It's different than mine. You should never let anyone else hold the pen, and don't give a fuck about keyboard warriors, people that are hating on you, because it's going to happen. You're going to have people that are going to try to bring you down to stay on their level. It's going to happen. But don't follow the default path by society. Maybe college isn't for you. I just went because, it seemed like the right thing to do. I had the GI Bill paid for it. Because what most of society is doing is wrong. Follow your path. It doesn't matter what it is, but go all in on something. Come up with a mission for you. Discover your mission and your purpose. And don't feel sorry for yourself or dwell on setbacks. Look, I think reflection of the past is great to do on a regular basis, but we're not dwelling on the past. Not, I should have, could have, whatever, right? We can reflect on the past to connect the dots looking back to see how maybe we could have been better in that relationship, maybe been better with the job if we didn't get the job, or done better in this endeavor. We can kind of do this self-analysis kind of thing, right? Very important. But not dwelling on the negativity, should have, could have, would have. There's a reason why your rear view mirror is very small, very small. And why we're looking out the windshield. We got the whole freaking windshield that we're looking at. We got a lot. We're moving forward. We're going to keep it moving. Learn from our mistakes. Yes, that's what life is all about, right? We learn and we grow through that, go through the pain, the experiences, but we're not dwelling on anything. And we're taking accountability for where we are in our life. Bro, if you're not where you want to be in your life right now, it's 100% your fault. It is. And maybe certain things that might have happened to you in your life aren't your fault, but it's your responsibility to take extreme ownership of your life, your situation, own every single thing in your life. It's only then when you can take extreme ownership and accept responsibility for you and your situation that you can truly set yourself free. And embrace the pain, the discomfort, the setbacks, the challenges. Use all of the pain and the struggle for growing opportunities to learn more about yourself and life and to build resilience. I've been through a lot of hardship in my life, and my dad wasn't around for half of my life, wasn't really there for me for half of my life, and I went in the military because I didn't really have the support that I felt like that I needed from a masculine father figure. And food deprived, sleep deprived when I was deployed overseas. I was in combat when I was 20, away from friends and family for months, and even years at a time when I was in the military. Pretty isolated, very, very uncomfortable, but I'm so grateful for the military experience because it really has enabled me to be able to tap in and become self-sufficient and to be able to persevere no matter what, and truly build that resilience. And I don't know what you're going through right now, wherever you are in your life, everybody's going through something. Some people just cover it up differently. Remember that. Oftentimes we hear or just see a highlight reel. Some people are much better about hiding things than other people. I'm pretty open and transparent with you guys, but remember that right now, no matter where you are in your life, no matter what you're going through at this moment, no matter how painful, no matter how confusing, you can figure it out. I believe in you, bro. And whatever your current situation is right now, understand that it is just temporary. Use this mindset to stay motivated and resilient. I actually had hit rock bottom almost about 2 years ago. Amazing physique, money was good, everything was great, and I actually had to, work was starting to go downhill, and I had to get a new job, and I didn't have a job for like 4 months. I had to move back in with my parents at like 31 years old, and I think it was actually 32, and man, that was tough, super depressing, and I went through the ringer. I let my physique slip, I let my discipline slip, my motivation fade away. I felt lost, man. And I turned to God to help me, to give me the guidance that I needed. And it wasn't until I looked to God to pray, to start prioritizing that relationship, that it really helped me give me the strength that I needed. And there's not a day that goes by now that I don't pray. This isn't about religion. I've never really been a big fan of the big business of church. It's just constructed by man wanting power, right? But pray, man. God, He'll get you through. So let me know in the comments, what's one thing that you're struggling with right now, the biggest thing that you're struggling with, and subscribe if you're not already. I'm dropping videos pretty much every day. Like the video, it helps the algorithm. We get this message out there more to more guys, help more guys, and yeah, catch you guys later. Peace.